Another Dead Teenager, a Paul Turner Mystery, Book 3. Author, Mark Richard Zubro. Stonewall Inn Mysteries. Narrator, Eric Aust. Chapter 7. At Aunt Millie's, they worked their way back to the unofficial Area 10 detective booth. They found Rodriguez staring into a beer. Dwayne and Jennifer were arguing over which was the favorite autopsy they'd attended. All three looked up as Turner and Fenwick plopped down. "You guys look awful optimistic," Rodriguez said. "They got a break on the case," Dwayne said. "They're all agog with excitement." "Remember when we finally got that break on the guy throwing boiling water on prostitutes?" Jennifer asked. "We toasted with champagne," Dwayne said. "Several of the best vintages." Turner and Fenwick ordered food and then explained what they'd gotten. "Great," Rodriguez said. "Somebody's running around the countryside mowing down teenage delinquents. Fucking fantastic. Fewer gang members on the streets. Less crime. You aren't planning to try and catch this guy?" "We want to find him so you can pin a medal on him," Fenwick said. "Using that computer stuff is smart," Dwayne said. "We take at least one computer class a year. We learned a lot more than those FBI people can ever come up with. I'd be happy to help if you need to understand something." "We could show you how to streamline your data," Jennifer said. "You sure you need that many categories on all of those cases?" "Why don't you both sit on it and rotate?" Fenwick suggested. Dwayne and Jennifer laughed condescendingly. "Don't be offended," Dwayne said. "We're just trying to help," Jennifer said. The waitress delivered Turner and Fenwick's cup of food. Even the presence of Dwayne and Jennifer couldn't sour Turner and Fenwick's upbeat mood. Back at Area 10 headquarters, several more large cartons of materials had been collected from the library. As Turner opened one box, papers cascaded out. 6 more computers had arrived from 11th and State while they were at lunch. The commander and the chief of detectives stopped by as Turner and Fenwick moved to speak with Blessing. They explained what they'd gotten so far. The chief of detectives, Samuel Parkinson, was a tall, thin man with a balding head and bushy eyebrows. "I think it's promising," Parkinson decreed after hearing them out. "I think I should announce it to the media." "No!" Turner, Fenwick, Blessing, and the commander said simultaneously. Fenwick's face showed signs of red deepening to purple. "We need to give the public something," Parkinson said. "The parents of Goldstein and Douglas deserve to know something." Before Fenwick could blow up, the commander began walking away with Parkinson. Turner figured their boss feared another outburst at a police brass person. He knew the commander would do everything he could to dissuade Parkinson from committing the incredible blunder of giving their most promising lead to the media. Fenwick said, "Why the hell do we have PR people in positions where we need competence?" "Can't all be brilliant detectives like us," Turner said. Fenwick said, "With this many reporters around and this many cops working, somebody's got to blab about what we're focusing on." "Probably," Turner said. Nothing they could do about it. Turner and Fenwick gathered the most promising cases from Blessing and returned to their desks on the 3rd floor to begin making phone calls. Randy Carruthers bounced up to their desk. "You guys seen Rodriguez lately?" he asked. "Millie's around an hour ago," Fenwick said. "I think he's trying to avoid me," Carruthers said. "We've all been doing that for years," Fenwick muttered. Carruthers didn't, or chose not to hear. Turner thought the fresh-faced creep must hear some of the comments his colleagues made almost daily in front of his face. Either the guy's ego was so huge, or his stupidity so massive, or his shame so deep that he never showed that he caught on. "Heard you guys got your big break," Carruthers said. "We're working on it now," Fenwick said. Carruthers set his butt on the edge of Fenwick's desk as if prepared to move in and chat for days. Randy, we're awful busy, Turner said. Get the fuck out of here, Fenwick said, swiping a massive paw at Carruthers' butt. Why don't you go find a white Ford Bronco to chase? Carruthers jumped off the desk. I think I'll go hunt up Rodriguez, he said. We're supposed to be in court this afternoon. He's always late. He trundled away. Around 4, when the squad room was quiet because of the change of shifts, Turner called Ben and told him he wouldn't be able to go with him to the ball game. I'm sorry, Ben. I truly am. Like I said, I'll make it up to you. I love you, Ben said. Turner glanced around the squad room. No one but Fenwick was near. He wasn't specifically embarrassed to say what he was going to say next in front of the group because he was gay, but because anyone caught expressing too much affection would get razzed about it. I love you, he whispered. Ben said, I think maybe I just won't go to the game. It's courtside seats. Someone will go with you. What about Myra? Her lover's taking her out for her birthday, and she only goes to hockey games. You'll find somebody who wants to go. I wish it was us, Ben said. I do too, Turner said. What's Brian doing tonight? Ben asked. You don't have to take my kid, Turner said. He and I get along well. Last couple nights were the first times we were around each other much without you there. It would be another chance for him and me to talk about you. He doesn't have plans that I know about. I'll check with him or Rose Tolucci. We'll know what he's up to. She's got radar when it comes to monitoring my kids. I could ask him, Ben said. I don't mind. He'd like that, Turner said. Ben agreed, then said, You know, it's around the neighborhood about Rose being sick. Word is she threw a passel of people out of the house around noon today. Told them they were all ghouls and warned them that if they didn't stop whining and moaning, she'd live to be 100. Good for Rose, Ben called back half an hour later. Rose would watch Jeff, and the ecstatic Brian would go to the game with Ben. Turner and Fenwick spent hours making phone calls. Not a one gave another clue. They found that many of the people who had been in charge of the cases had moved, transferred, or were simply not in. They got a few simple I don't knows. Most were sympathetic. Nobody had records of testicles crushed or underwear missing. Those they got hold of gave them more information for the profiles they were building, so after every few calls, Turner or Fenwick would take the data upstairs and add it to the stacks of material to be entered on the computer records. At 9, Turner and Fenwick trudged up to the 4th floor together. Blessing stood at a printer, gazing at data running from the machine. Cops bent over data or squinted at screens. The sound of clicking computer keys filled the room. Got anything? Turner asked the computer expert. Latest printout coming, Blessing said. It'll take a few minutes. Turner gazed at the machine spewing out information. I thought we had something. Easy to get discouraged, Blessing said. We're still crunching tons of data. You tell them to stop researching it 1950. Yeah, Turner said. I wanted to give it some kind of cutoff. If we have to do the 40s and even the 30s, we will. Could a serial killer operate that long without being caught or at least noticed? Fenwick asked. Plus, we go back to the 30s and 40s, and it means our serial killer is in his 70s or 80s. Seems a little unlikely to me. I hope we don't have to go back that far, Blessing said. Turner wandered over to the floor-to-ceiling corkboard. It was crammed with crime scene photos, copies of lab reports, diagrams, office reports, computer printouts, and the large-scale map. Turner gazed at the multicolored states, a few nearly obliterated by red pens. The entire United States, huge parts of Canada, and much of north of Mexico were filled with red dots. Someone had gone out and brought in a box of 1,000 of them. Turner estimated 2/3 of the box was empty. Fenwick joined him at the map. Not a hell of a lot of help. Let's get the most likely ones we've been calling all day and use a different color for them, Turner suggested. They returned a couple of minutes later with printouts and began placing yellow pins in the cities they'd been calling. 15 minutes later, Fenwick stepped back and said, I think I see the face of Aunt Millie emerging from the pattern. A miracle, Turner said. We could set up a little shrine and make money off the tourists. He eyed the results critically. It doesn't have the wart on her cheek the way it should. Blessing joined them. Here's the latest. He held the computer printout to show them. I've rearranged the data with this kind of spreadsheet. I can print the categories you wanted across the top. Plus, I started 5 people on going back to the likely cases, taking every piece of data from them and making new categories, depending on the news stories. You get lots of data or little. The most I have is one with 73 categories. A math genius and track star who fell in a hiking accident back in 1985. All the papers we've been hunting through had them. Data from calls, other than the ones you made, is still coming in. Also around 3 this afternoon, and all of the dead teenagers alphabetized by last name. Easier to get duplicate articles about their deaths organized. Fenwick and Turner nodded. They spread out the data sheets on the 3-by-9-foot table under the map. Blessing had their 3 testicles crushed cases at the top of the page. One had 30 categories filled in. Another had 63. The third had 51. This reflected the vagaries of the newspaper articles and the information they'd gotten over the phone or by fax. The next 27 listings were the most likely cases, and the ones they had called. The 3 men studied the data. Nothing seemed consistent. Some had divorced parents. Some hadn't. Some had big funerals attended by hundreds, others private affairs. Some were accidents, others suicides, some gang problems. Only 2 definite murders. The accidents had an enormous range. Car crashes, fires, falls, hit by lightning. Anything humans were prey to happened to these kids. I want consistency, Fenwick said. Forget it, Blessing said. The only reason some of these came to the top was their sort of relation in a few categories to your 3. The kids played sports, but that's the only connection. The cops shook their heads. Shame about a few of these kids, Blessing said. Why's that? Turner asked. Blessing pointed to a column far on the right of the lengthy printout. 5 of these had big spreads in their local papers sometime in the year before they died. Turner could neither move nor talk. Goldstein and Douglas had articles about them, too, Fenwick said. Brian did last month, Turner said. That's the connection, Blessing asked. So few have it, Fenwick said. Turner rushed to a computer with the others hurrying behind. Make this give me data, Turner said. I want kids who died who had articles written about them. We don't have that many local papers, Blessing said as his fingers raced over the keys. In our most likely category, only those 5 mentioned it. I'm not sure about all these others. We only know about it if one of the national papers picked it up. Make the damn thing give data, Turner commanded. Fenwick put his hand on Turner's shoulder. Easy, buddy. Minutes passed as Blessing typed, watching the screen, and typed some more. Turner sent one of the cops to find out if the Bulls game was over. It wasn't. Finally, the printer began to click. We've only got 2 more, besides these, Blessing said. Where are they? Turner asked. Huh? Blessing said. Turner snatched the page out of Blessing's hand. He hurried to the map, found 7 blue pins, and jammed them into the map. They start in Spokane and make a circle through southwest to St. Louis, Turner said. Fenwick had been staring at the printout. Look at the dates. Started 9 years ago. But they're in order. Spokane was first, then Portland. Jesus Christ! My kid's in danger. I've got to get to the stadium. Turner was already running for the stairs as he spoke. I'll go with... Fenwick was right behind. I'll go with... Fenwick was right behind. I'll call ahead, Blessing yelled. Do you know where their seats are? Courtside, behind the Bulls bench. Turner shouted from the top of the stairs. Security's tight in that area anyway, Fenwick said as they raced down to the first floor. Turner jumped in his car and Fenwick threw himself into the passenger side as Turner floored the engine. Fenwick's driving was as nothing compared to the speed Turner made to the stadium. They showed their badges at the gate, whose keeper was inclined to give them a hard time. Turner barged past, found a security guard, showed him his identification, and dragged the mystified man in his wake. He didn't care if the guy understood any of the explanation Turner shouted at him as they ran toward the seats. He was going to get to his son. At the entranceway to the mass of humanity, a contingent of security guards met them. "You're the cops we got the call about. Looking for somebody?" "Yes," Turner said. "We haven't been able to find them," the security guard said. "The guy who called couldn't give us much of a description." "They're here," Turner said. He and Fenwick, followed by two of the stadium security guards, marched down to the section behind the Bulls bench. They found 2 empty seats. The nearby fans resented the intrusion. No one could remember who was in the seats, and no one remembered anyone being in them since halftime. The head of security at the United Center joined them after a few minutes. "Who are you looking for?" he asked. "My son, Brian, a teenager, and a guy he was here with in his late 30s. No one had seen them. They were not in the first aid station, and all building page turned up nothing. Turner, Fenwick, and the head of security stood in the main foyer of the building. The commotion broke out at the gate 20 feet from them. "Ben!" Paul called as he ran toward his lover. Ben had blood on his face and hands. "What happened? Where's Brian?" "In the car, unconscious. I couldn't get in. He wanted to drive, took his car. He's got the keys." "Where?" Ben staggered out the door. He pointed toward the west parking lot. "Row 6 or 7 across the street." Paul ran across the well-lit parking lot. He thought he heard people behind him. He nearly tripped on the curb on the far side of the street. His eyes desperately scanned the thousands of cars for his sons. He turned down row 6 and slowed slightly. A security guard ran up next to him. "You see the car?" the guard asked. Paul shook his head. He ran a few more steps. "There!" he shouted. He raced toward his son's car. It was parked at an odd angle. His son was sprawled in the back seat. Brian didn't move. Paul pulled out his keys, unlocked the front door, flipped the switch to unlock all the doors, wrenched open the back door, and grabbed his son. He felt a strong pulse at the throat. He was alive, but tears came anyway. Brian had a nasty scrape on the left side of his face and on both hands. Paul held him and tried to revive him, but had no luck. Paramedics arrived quickly. Brian revived after a few seconds of oxygen. He lay on the gurney, holding his dad's hand and looking bewildered. Paul let the paramedics work, but stayed next to his son. After a few minutes, Brian sat up. He held his head with both hands and bent over. "Are you okay?" Paul asked. "My head feels like shit, but I think I'm all right." One paramedic said, "He might have a concussion. You should probably take him to a hospital." "What happened?" Paul asked. "A security guard gave me a message from you." "I sent no message." "He said you wanted me to meet you out front. I said I'd go get Ben, but the guard said it was urgent. He'd tell him, and we could meet out front." Fenwick, hovering nearby, said, "I'll go talk to security." He hurried off. Brian continued. "I got outside, but nobody was here. I thought of going back in, but I figured maybe you'd pull up in an unmarked car. So I walked toward the street." Brian took a deep breath. When I got to the curb, a car pulled out of the far end of the parking lot and started driving down the street. He was going pretty fast, but I didn't think anything of it until he swerved toward me. I leaped sideways as the car jumped the curb. It was a little higher than whoever it was thought, because the car thumped and swerved sideways, or he'd have hit me. But then he backed off and tried to hit me again. I was running by that time. I headed into the middle of the cars away from the street. I didn't run back to the building because there was nothing but open space between me and it. I would have had a clear shot at me. I dodged between cars. He tried ramming a few. I jumped up on the hood of one. He was smart. He smashed into the one I was jumping toward. He moved it enough that I mistimed my leap. I fell between the cars and bashed my head. I was really groggy. I thought if I could get to our car, I could drive away. Nobody was around. Everybody was inside for the game. I ran across the street while he was trying to get out of that part of the parking lot. I was having trouble focusing for a while. He almost got me on this side of the street. It was like dodging cars at a carnival. I don't know how I got in the back seat. I remember getting inside and locking all the doors. He backed up and came at the car as hard as he could. I must have hit my head again. I don't know why he didn't get out of his car and come after me. Several blue and white Chicago police cars had showed up by now, along with the head of security, as well as a small crowd. Paul stood next to his son. Ben, who had been quietly standing on the other side of Brian, said, "I can fill that in a little. When Brian didn't come back from the John for a long time, I got uneasy. I went to look for him. Through the doors, I saw Brian run across the street." The head of security said, "My people saw something wrong. Thought it was a couple of teenagers screwing around. They weren't fast enough to get out here to help. When they heard cars getting smashed, they moved pretty quick." "I got there first," Ben said. "As I got near Brian's car, this guy pulled out and tried to hit me. I fell and banged my head against the pavement and scraped my hands like Brian." Fenwick walked up. He said, "They're checking again, but no message came through Security Central for Brian." "It was a killer," Turner said. "What did the guy look like who gave you the message?" "Shorter than me, chubby, a guard-type uniform." Brian looked at one of the nearby guards. "It didn't look like his." "Probably fake," Fenwick said. Brian continued. "Official-looking hat on his head, long black hair, big bushy mustache, glasses." "I didn't get a look at him behind the headlights," Ben said. "What kind of car was it?" Turner asked. Fenwick interrupted. "We got a report of an abandoned wreck a block and a half from here. I talked to one of the cops. No license plates. No current registration. We'll impound. Try for fingerprints." Paul insisted on a stop at the hospital for Brian and Ben. Although both said it wasn't necessary in a mercifully brief time, they confirmed that Brian's concussion was very minor, but that he should take it easy for a few days. Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold: to offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides, and in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.